Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Town of Richmond Selectboard, Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Muy buenas tardes. En nombre de la Junta Selecta de Richmond, les damos una cordial bienvenida. Nuestra comunidad abre sus puertas a todos, sin importar de dónde vengan. La Sagrada Escritura nos recuerda: al extranjero que reside con ustedes lo tratarán como a uno nacido entre ustedes. Lo amarás como a ti mismo, porque también ustedes fueron extranjeros de Egipto. Levítico 19:34. Con este espíritu de hospitalidad y respeto, comenzamos nuestra reunión. Good evening and welcome on behalf of the Richmond Select Board, we warmly welcome you. Our community opens its doors to all, no matter where you come from. Scripture reminds us that foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Leviticus 19:34. With this spirit of hospitality and respect, we begin our meeting. Does anybody have any public comment on any item not on the agenda?
Can I pass you this?
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. I know it's not on your agenda item tonight, so that's why I'm bringing it up. I didn't know if there was an update on the sign, on whether it was permitted. I know your town interim zoning administrator was on vacation the first week after your select board meeting was back this last week. And I'm asking was it permitted, or was it in violation? It is underneath the sign or the sign.
Item C, we will be discussing that.
Perfect, because I just wanted to make sure it was warned as you were talking about the sign ordinance versus the actual sign. So thank you. I will bring it up during that time.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment on any item on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we will begin with the warned items. Our first item is an update on Hinesburg terminating the current agreement for police services and police chief services. Discussion of policing in the short term and a future cooperation with Hinesburg for police services, including the possibility of forming a Union Municipal District to provide services to both towns. This is a fairly lengthy update. It goes like almost 2 pages in our memo. So rather than me trying to race through it, I'm going to ask Josh to cover it.
Sure. So kind of maybe give a little bit of a history. Going back 2 years in 2023, we contracted with Hinesburg for some police coverage because at the time we only had 2 officers. So we were looking for a way to give them a day off together and working days together in the office. More importantly, pretty quickly after that, we lost both of those officers. So the contract became coverage for Richmond pretty much permanently. And quickly following that, the agreement for chief services because we needed an interim chief as well. So fast forward now 2 years, this spring we had an officer and they had 2, I think they were at 3 or 2 officers as well. They wanted to see a more reciprocal agreement where, if our officer was absent, then they had to cover Richmond, but if they didn't have an officer on, then there was no reciprocal coverage. Both select boards agreed to reciprocal coverage. We moved forward with that. I think one thing though was the select board meeting 2 weeks ago, where we talked about the grievance from the union about what should the officer pay before contract coverage. The answer to that was that the select board agreed with that the contract with the union did include for time and a half pay for contract coverage, and that was going to apply to the agreement with Hinesburg. Hinesburg officers were not getting time and a half for their coverage of Richmond. I think they were getting about $125 per week, which is about $3 an hour for a 40-hour week, thereabouts. They felt they couldn't afford to pay time and a half for their officers. They don't have a union contract that said they had to either. So I think that was part of the consideration for backing out of the contract is, well, we can't kind of become equal here with the labor and with the wages. Once they determined they wanted to pause the contract for police services, it didn't really make much sense to provide chief coverage because there was no overlap in staffing. So they decided they didn't want to do that either. And they looked at, I guess they posed it to me as a pause or a suspension of the contract, but really it's a termination. There's really no pause option there. But I think the spirit was if we could find a way to work together, they would, if we could overcome some of the challenges, that they would be up for doing that. They didn't want to like, I guess, call it a termination, but it essentially is a termination with like as friendly as terms, I think, as you can have. We then met with the Police Governance Committee last Monday to discuss what should our next path forward be. That committee consists of 2 Richmond Selectboard members, 2 Hinesburg Selectboard members, both town managers, Sergeant Cohen and the police chief from Hinesburg. We determined that, we had been talking for a while about how can we work together. It's been going fairly well for the last 2 years, working together with shared police and shared chief services. And we had started to look for a shared interim chief to help us address next steps in working together. We determined that pausing that search at this point is probably prudent because there's really no two departments that aren't really working together right now. So how do we get to our next steps? We discussed we could contract, which is basically what we've been doing for the last year. But to further get for the last 2 years, to further get to a more permanent contract, though, would mean dissolving one department and having the other department have all the officers and the chief, and then one town would contract wholly for police services. That does come with some challenges. The department that's dissolved, if there was ever a problem with that contract, or you'd have really sole sourcing, essentially is where it comes down to. You wouldn't be able to go to any other source, or if you needed to go to another source for police services, it would take some time, or to rebuild your department could also take a lot of time. Another option is forming a Union Municipal District, which is a long-term solution where both departments would be dissolved. The new municipality would be established that is to charge with policing both towns. In that instance, there'd be a shared governance structure where there'd be representatives from both town on the board. Think of it like a school board. There's shared structure from each town that's involved in that school board. It'd be very similar except for police services. The process to get there is you have to form a joint survey committee, which would also have joint representation from both towns. It takes many months, if not a couple of years, to do the outreach, get public feedback, and essentially write what the municipal charter would be for that new municipal district. At the end of which there would be a vote by the citizens of both communities. If both approve, you move on, you have a new Union Municipal District. If they don't approve, then it fails, and that's that. So what we looked at the Police Governance Committee was bringing it back to both select boards to see what the appetite is for the select board moving forward with either a contract or Union Municipal District, or potentially the board could say, no, we don't want to move forward with anything at this point, and pause all conversations about cooperation.
I would just add 2 other things for background. It struck me that there might have been misunderstandings about our current collective bargaining agreement and the 1.5 contract rate. It's my recollection that that language predated any agreement with Hinesburg, and it was based on, we're gonna like provide contract police services to a parade or to an event, and we'll charge 1.5 and pay the person 1.5. That's my recollection of the principle behind that. And it was an easy thing to agree to predating a Hinesburg agreement. And when we, at least I think it was my perspective, and I think it may have been unanimous of the select board, that with a straight face reading the language in the collective bargaining agreement, it also applies to the Hinesburg agreement, which looks like a contract, smells like a contract, flies like a contract. I will say several times over the course of a year and a half, Hinesburg select board members said, why don't you just, this is like, it's going to take so long, it's so messy. Why don't you just close your department and contract with us? And in my opinion, that's a big deal in terms of, authority, cost, all the sole source things, and not having any direct control. I think it is prudent for us to contemplate that. Is there any interest in that? Because that is a short-term thing. And what would it take to do that if we are interested? I think we as a board need to make a decision about what's our desired end state. And are we interested at all at the Union Municipal District? And it was something that our members of that committee really sort of asked Hinesburg to come back to. And I think of this as you don't have to give us a green light. It's red light or yellow light. If it's a red light, we might as well know because we're just gonna stop. If you don't want to pursue this, let us know. It's also, you should know, just in terms of current dynamics, that Hinesburg is beginning collective bargaining for the first time with their officers. It seemed pretty clear that some of the folks from Hinesburg were not really familiar with what unions are, what their goals are, and how they sort of represent their workers. But that's, neither here nor there in some ways. I really think that we as a select board need to declare what our goal or end state is. And I don't want to make up my mind before we discuss this, but I tend to default to some sort of partnership with another town, Hinesburg or another town, or more than one other town. Everybody I've talked to in police leadership around the state sees this as the direction of the future. Small towns are going to suffer on their own with recruitment and retention of chiefs and officers. And it seems like that's a direction, like if that's where the wind is blowing, perhaps we should put up our sail and see if we can catch the wind.
Thank you.
I hope that's helpful.
Anyone else on this microphone? Okay, it's not lost to me from conversations with people in the town that recruitment is a big concern. We are seen as a starter job for a lot of people that come here, they work for a while and then they move to the big city. We try to keep our pay competitive, but we're up against a lot of other people. And I'd like to say that we have a fully staffed department and that we can hold up our end of the argument as equals, but right now it's hard to do that with one officer. We are continuing to interview. I mentioned
We had interviewed it.
we had an interview today. And we mentioned additional.
And
Okay. We did have an interview today. I think, hey, the person was a good. And we're continuing to look, but right now, do we have a fully staffed department? No. If we were to do a Union Municipal District, which is a topic I support exploring, I have for some time, that doesn't instantly solve our recruitment problems. It just means we share that recruitment problem with another town. But there would be economies of scale, I would think, and that might mean we'd be able to put more money toward the actual salaries. So that's my 2 cents. Caitlin, David?
I'm just listening at this point. The termination of the contract was a surprise to me. I was very happy with the way things were going. And this was just like, oh, not welcome news.
And unexpected.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor up to the members of the public. Anybody who would like to speak or ask questions about this?
Sure, I'm happy to lend some wisdom. You want me to come up?
Yeah,
Please.
if you would, please. Please.
So for the 2 board members that don't know me, my name is Bob Stafford. I've been in Richmond most of my life, but recently moved back probably 12 years ago. And my background is law enforcement, 40 years of it, Vermont State Police. Been a police chief in 2 states, ran the New Hampshire Police Academy for 10 years. And that was the end of my career. But also during that career, I was a part of a law enforcement executive consortium that actually did hirings throughout New England, New York State, did studies of police departments to find out what the heck was going on with them. So I'm very familiar with that. And in the mid-90s, I did a hiring process for Richmond when I was a police chief in Vermont because I was asked to do it. And then in 2019, when Alan Buck had said he was retiring, I was asked by the town manager, I volunteered, it didn't cost the town a thing, to do a hiring process. And we had a very, very outstanding group of individuals that we interviewed, and we picked the former assistant commissioner of safety as an interim. He was more of a, I guess, law enforcement or a chief, but he didn't have sworn powers. He basically administered the police department at that time. He couldn't enforce the law. He could go out and do things like that. And what I saw was he was able to stabilize the police department. He was able to keep the people here. And then, you know, what's happened over the last 6 years. So a couple of things is if you're going to have a police department, this would be my recommendation. If you're going to have a police department, is you hire your chief first. Because in my experience, and I've been through this myself, is if you have a chief who is well-known in the area, who has credibility, who maybe people want to come and work for, and maybe they stay here for 3 years, I don't know that, then allow your chief to choose his folks. And then he or she can direct the police department. That's what I would recommend. I would not, if I were in your shoes, I would not hire another police officer until you get a police chief. Let that person build the police department if you want to do that. But having said that, there are not a lot of candidates out there. If you are going to hire a police chief, then I would recommend that you use somebody. And Jim Baker was involved, the former head of the Vermont State Police. He has a police management company. He's very well known. He's done a ton of hiring processes in this particular area. I would hire somebody like him to do the hiring. Don't do it yourself. Have somebody that knows who's out there, who has the contacts. Because when I did it in 2019, I was able to call certain people and say, you really ought to take a look at Richmond. I think it's pretty interesting. And you could build your own police department. Now, it's not going to get exponentially large in a very short period of time, but at least you can grow the police department if you want to do that. Because your police chief is going to need to wear a uniform and they're going to want to be out on the road. It's going to have to be a working chief. I mean, we all know that. That's just the size of the police department. So hire the chief before you go any further. If you're going to have a police department, if you're going to hire the chief, then hire somebody that has done this, who has the contacts in the community, in the state, in New England. There are a number of people that I could recommend to do that. Jim Baker is first and foremost on my mind. I mean, Bard and David know that because I recommended that to the committee before. The other thing to look at is other towns approaching their town managers, Williston and Essex. And don't think that you know what they're going to say until you meet with them and ask them about it. Now, they may say yes, they may say no. I don't know what they're going to say, but they may be open to it. They may not want to assume supervising a Richmond police officer. I don't know that. So that's what Bard was talking about. Do you abolish the police department? And it's not to get away from the union contract or anything like that, but take a look at 6 years of history. Here we are again talking about it today, and it's pretty frustrating because I know the residents of Richmond want police service, and they deserve police service, safety and security. That's what it's all about. So, do you abolish the police department? Well, that's a choice that you're going to have to make, for sure. This unified district is another great opportunity. I'm a big proponent of collaborative efforts. When I was in New Hampshire, we couldn't join other police departments because everybody wanted their own power. But what we did was we developed a regional dispatch, and we dispatch for a large number of police departments. So I know that that can work. It's just that Chittenden County and the state of Vermont hasn't necessarily done that yet. But if you get this municipal district, and I know they tried it in Washington County, it's a very tedious process, politically charged, emotionally charged, and everything else. And if people can just lower their thresholds of we need to control everything and work together like school boards do, and that was a great analogy, then I think in the long term, I think that would be great. Because if Richmond and another local police department can do that, then it may set the example. State police are not gonna, they're gonna come for an emergency. I can tell you that. I know that. Williston's gonna come for an emergency. Essex will come if they know about it. Hinesburg will certainly come. And if there's a sheriff in the area, then I'm sure they're gonna be there, because I don't know any law enforcement officer that hears an emergency over the radio and knows that either Matt needs backup or Richmond doesn't have anybody on, they're not gonna go. That's just inherent in what we do. So anyways, those are my thoughts, and if you have any questions, then I'm happy to
Anyone have any
throw them out.
questions, Mr. Stafford?
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like the putting a district together would be a great opportunity, but we need to do something to kind of bridge us from now to then. Do you have any ideas on that? Or, I mean, that sounds like that's a multi-year process, right? To get them up and.
Well, it could be, if you get the right person. No, I'm not suggesting you call Paco Waman to do this, but Paco Waman, who was the interim police chief here, did that. And did a nice job, because I saw what he did. But they just couldn't get the communities together. That was the thing. There was a power struggle. But he's knowledgeable about it. So you would want somebody who's knowledgeable about formulating this kind of district, that can put the pieces together, that can give you that type of advice. And I know there's people out there that can do that. But to answer your question, in the meanwhile, so I'm putting myself in the position of maybe a police chief at an area department, local department, a budding department, and the town manager. I would want to hear from Richmond that Richmond is going to take the step with Hinesburg or whoever else to form this municipal district. And then know that Richmond is going to need some sort of policing in the interim basis, whatever time it takes. But I would want to know that that's the direction, because then I might, as that police chief who you're going to and the town manager, where you're trying to get them to say, yes, we'll provide service for you, they may be more likely to give you that short-term service. And who the heck knows? They may decide, after hearing the plan and seeing who is trying to get this plan into operation and that it's organized, they may want a part of it. You don't know that, until you get there. That's pie in the sky, but that's the only way I would know to do that, is if you want policing in the interim, then yeah, Matt, do you get rid of the police department? Do you contract? There's all sorts of things out there, but the state police just isn't going to do it. The sheriff's department is pretty tied up. Williston is growing leaps and bounds. Jim Baker did their report. They've got people coming on over the next few years, so they're building up their force. And if you're going to hire a police chief, you're going to have to pay that person to get them here, and that's not inexpensive. And I haven't looked at what your hourly rate is for police officers. But you're going to have to be comparable. I went through that in Milton, because Milton did not have that kind of contract, and we were losing people. But eventually the select board said, yes, we need to get things up to snuff. And take a look at Milton. They are now stable. People aren't running away from working in Milton. Plus the population has grown. If I was a young police officer coming on and I knew that there was Richmond and Hinesburg together, or Richmond and Williston, maybe Hinesburg, or there was this big area, I'd be excited. It's no different than a county where the state police cover. It really isn't, but it's the variety. And that's what you want to give a police officer: the variety, the chance to experience not only patrol, but investigative. But you can do investigative work in uniform when you're in patrol.
Right.
You can do that. But you have to have somebody who's going to manage that. And that's the thing. You need somebody who's going to know how to manage the police officers. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
And we appreciate them. You've heard Mr. Stafford, Caitlin, David, Bart, Adam. Do you have anything else you want to ask? Tom?
Generally, we have Can you remind me again how many open recs we have for police officers in Richmond? How many open positions we have?
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're budgeted for 4, we currently have 1 officer. We're budgeted for half a chief that we're gonna split with Hinesburg.
Okay. The budgeting for half the chief is that, and so here's what's going through my head, like we have 1 officer. We have a need for an interim plan. If we were to hire a chief first, if that's the option to do. You know, ideally, we have full coverage with 4 officers, but we've seen that we just can't get there yet. And so I'm wondering if there's a path there of we hire a chief, we take the budget for the 4th officer and just work on 3 officers. I don't know if that's an option that we want to explore, or I'm just kind of thinking through like how could we move around in the interim time. The other thought is, you know, of course we want to work with other towns and so forth, but in working with Hinesburg, it still didn't get full coverage, and we're kind of balancing off of their hiring capabilities and so forth. So we're kind of in a spot that like, even if we get there, it's not necessarily solving for what the town is asking for, which is that someone is available when they call and is able to come. And obviously, we can't do that all by himself. So,
Because Duke.
well, and Duke can, obviously, but, yeah, so that's kind of what's going through my head. I like the idea of continuing to pursue partnership as we can do that, and it makes sense to use that to our future. But in the interim, like, can we, if we find a chief who is able to hire people in their community, or like you know, recruit people in their community, are we going to end up with a strong working chief plus an officer that's already here plus maybe 2 other officers? Like, I think that likelihood is higher than just continuing down the path we're on.
So Caitlin, thanks for bringing up the part-time position for chief that's in the budget, because I didn't know that. So New Hampshire has been successful with part-time chiefs, and typically that part-time chief that would come into a small community would be a fully certified officer from another department where they are able to work another job in their time off. And that is also a possibility. Is there somebody out there that is looking at some point in their career to move up? Because
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people to supervise here. It's a small area. And if you know what kind of coverage you want, then, you know, that's the coverage you're going to get, because that's all you have. And who knows what that particular part-time chief would bring with him as far as maybe part-time officers. But then again, it's nice to hire fully certified officers, but you got to make sure that you do the background on these people to make sure that you're not getting somebody else's issues, because that's big time.
Okay, I'm gonna go to June Heston on the
Yes.
Zoom.
Thank you. I want to say I agree with Bob on hiring a chief first. I would also say it might be, like Caitlin said, it might make more sense to hire a full-time chief who can then be part of the process if you want to work towards a municipal district. And I think most importantly in that process is, you know, we do need police coverage in the meantime. So having a chief help with that bridge, and Matt, and then you ask neighboring towns if this is something they'd be willing to come to the table and talk about. I think, you know, when I was on the select board not that long ago, we were in conversations with Hinesburg regarding a municipal district, and sort of at the 11th hour they pulled out. So I think it's time to talk to other towns who would be willing to at least sit down and have a conversation and legitimately feel like this is a move in the right direction. Because like what Bard said, all the police leadership will tell you this is going to be a necessary move. Like, this is something that's going to happen in the future. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Eric,
Hold on. Do you need me to go up? Can you hear me good?
we hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. A couple of the other side of that coin, if you hire your chief first, if you're going to be a combined municipal grouping, then having 2 chiefs is going to be a problem. So you kind of need to decide which direction you'd like to go in, if you'd like to be with other towns versus it's gonna be an issue. It was an issue before. You guys, the last time you hired a chief was an interim chief, and then you had posted to hire a chief, and I think you went through the interview process and made an offer or two, and they didn't get taken. So you didn't go with the chief, and we went with Hinesburg. So I think you really need to look back, and I know times change. Every year could be a different year. There could be somebody out there that's looking to be the chief of police. Don't get me wrong. But if you're bringing them in and then deciding that you're going to merge with other towns, you've possibly caused an issue for yourself. So that's just putting it out there. Bob and June both think you should bring in a chief. The last time you tried to bring one, you couldn't bring one in. That's your call. But a couple of things for immediate needs. Your immediate need is to get in touch with the union, see if you can renegotiate the contract rather than having to dissolve the police department. It's the contract that is one of your issues. And that's what's going to happen in Hinesburg too. If they bring in a union, then you're going to have two unions or the same union to deal with and issues. If the union renegotiates, so you can take out the 1.5 in both contracts, it goes away, problem goes away. If they don't want to renegotiate anything with you, then you potentially have the right to dissolve the police department and move forward in that direction with whichever way you're going to go. Don't want to lose Matt, don't want to have that happen. But before Matt was hired, and I'm going to say I told you so, when you didn't have an acting police officer and you were negotiating with a union, you dropped the ball. You can't negotiate with a union that has no active officers. We should have dissolved then, but now we have this contract. So either renegotiate the contract or you're going to have to dissolve the police department because it's going to cause a problem if you go to work with Williston. Isn't the union going to be an issue if Williston doesn't have a union? Hinesburg is an issue because Richmond has a union and Hinesburg doesn't. So you got to think ahead and really look at your strategy with this. And if you aren't comfortable doing it as select board members, then I really think then you've got to bring in an expert in rural Vermont communities and towns that can really look at our history and see what's going on to know what hasn't worked for us. Because every budget season you tell us that you have 2 officers that you're interviewing and 2 officers that you think you're going to make offers to. Every budget season, we'll go back year after year after year. This year you have somebody who you just interviewed today, and now you're not going to possibly offer somebody a job because we might do a chief instead first. I'm just saying, you guys got a bunch of mixed messages going out there, and I know it's very confusing, but please take a moment, take a breath, and think about your strategy.
Matt, you want to come up?
Yes.
Say, you can come up if he wants to share.
Sure, he'll follow me around. So I know you guys all know that I've been a supporter of making a Union Municipal District or one unified department. However, you got to that, and I presented that back in February. That is probably the way policing is going. It's the basic economy of there are more jobs than there are officers. We have, just like in the housing markets, we have a set amount of officers we produce every year through the academy. That's one of our biggest hurdles with hiring and training new officers. If I had a person apply today with no experience, we're a year out from today that they're on the road by themselves. That's just because of when the academy starts in February. It doesn't get out till about June, and then they have another 14 weeks of FTO. In the same time, if we had 2 officers right now that had no experience apply, and we want to hire both of them, we hire both of them, but then I can only train one at a time. So when they get out in June, I only can train one of them at a time. So the reality of our recruiting and retention, if we want to recruit, we got to look at laterals. To look at lateral transfers, you need to be highly competitive. We are in this rebuilding phase. We don't have the leadership at the moment. We need to get that leadership, whatever that leadership is. That bridges our short-term gap. But then we got to decide, what do we want to do for the long term? And if that's staying as our own department, we got to stay competitive and highly competitive so we don't lose people. On that Side note, if we get somebody who is a lateral transfer, about 6 months of training goes into them, that they're actually getting paid for training. Even at the base pay, that's $30,000. Raising our rates or giving officers the appropriate pay, we save money on not having to pay $30,000 in training to have someone go somewhere else.
That's a good point.
So really look at that larger economy of it is cheaper to pay higher rates and have qualified people here than it is to train and let them go somewhere else. That is a short version of what is the economy right now. And policing is skilled labor. There's only so many officers out there. And eventually what will happen, just like any economics, we will get to the point of the jobs where people can pay the appropriate rates will be filled, and the towns and areas that don't want to make those openings, they will disappear. And eventually the market will settle back down. But right now, demand is high and supply is low. That's basic economics of policing right now.
Can I interject for a minute?
Please.
And just add to what Matt's talking about is the benefit of hiring a brand new officer is you're going to mold them the way you want them to be, or she's going to be. And that's a huge benefit. And yes, it could be time consuming. If you hire 2 officers and there's only 1 training officer, there's nothing to say that you can't contract or ask another community who has a great field training officer if they would do that for you. I've seen it done. It works.
It also was a history in Richmond, where they had a partnership with Essex.
Could be, but what I'm saying is I don't want you to not know that that particular option, you know, is out there.
Well, speaking only as one member of the select board in this case, I would like to explore forming a Union Municipal District, knowing that that's like saying, I think I'll walk from here to Siberia. It's gonna take a while. But I think we should also, in the budget meeting this fall, look at police actually employee compensation in general, but police in particular, because I think that's a very good point. If you're paying money, you're training officers, you're paying them to go to the academy, what have you, and then they're leaving. That's not cost effective. It would make more sense to say, well, I mean, to do what we did back when June, I believe, was chair, was to say, let's look at the salaries paid by peer communities, which were not necessarily Chittenden County. They were things like Morrisville. And then say, now, where do we want to be? Do we want to be at the 50th percentile, which means we're going to fall behind pretty quickly? I think we went up to what, the 75th?
I thought it was the 75th.
75th. But then I would imagine if we looked at the numbers right now, we're probably back somewhere 50 or below. And that's just the world we live in. If we want to have a police department and compete for officers, we will probably need to raise the compensation.
Just a note on that, I agree that's probably something we need to explore, but we also need to bargain that with the union. Because we have a union contract, and we were supposed to get back to the table last week, that got delayed. It's unclear exactly when we'll be able to reconvene with the union, because what was Chris's position?
Regional representative,
So he's no longer regional representative.
correct?
So the union, you're basically waiting for direction from the union as far as
Correct.
what you do for your next steps. So there's just some additional layers there. It'd be great to just say, yeah, we could raise wages. I'm not saying, I'm just saying that that's sort of the roadmap to get there is not as straightforward as it could be. Yeah, that's kind of it.
And the other thing that's out there, and you folks have probably talked about it, is bonuses to lure people here, whether it's police chief or an officer. Stowe has an ad, $15,000.
And do they get that after 6 months or something?
Well, it's a progression. That's a good question. You can progress it because obviously you want the person to stay. So you can do that. And I think Stowe is paying close to, for starting hourly rate, $30 an hour. So that's $60,000 a year. I don't know what Richmond, but you have a community that has money, obviously. But I talk about Stowe because that's the one I saw today and I'm going, oh, no kidding. That's very interesting. But I'm sure you have at your fingertips what everybody makes in the state as a starting salary.
Well, it's
in
not as
policing.
easy as all that, but maybe we can get those numbers. Last time we had to pay somebody to dig it up.
Oh,
And
I'm getting it right now.
You, okay, but you can come with it too, but we did.
If you
we
believe
did
it,
have-
sure looks
For
right.
study for the town,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But for officers, it's actually
So is-
easier. I mean, you.
Okay, you're right.
Union will come with contracts that they want to talk about as well. So you can use people in.
Mhm.
Caitlin can use AI and get it. in 5 seconds.
I already got it.
apparently. So,
Yeah.
I think.
Kind of
there's
freaky
definitely-
watching the field populate.
Yeah, but we should be looking at that because if we're not at the 80th percentile at this point, then we're just wasting time right now.
Yeah, and I think you can, and I haven't checked it lately, but the Academy website in the state of Vermont has advertisements for all of the different, not only state agencies, but local agencies and sheriffs. So you can look there.
Okay, so before we go back to the audience, there's no motion included in the package tonight. It's kind of a general sense of the department, of the board. What are we interested in doing? Are we interested in exploring Union Municipal District? Are we interested in focusing on a chief search? Caitlin has just found something, so I'm gonna,
No, I was just, it's doing its thing. But I was also wondering, and so we've heard, you did a whole presentation, which was wonderful. And, I understand you still want to move towards a unified, department. And I'm wondering what, your take on hiring a chief is, because I'm trying to just formulate my thoughts there.
I think that really depends on the direction that the town wants to take.
Mhm.
If the town wants to stabilize the department, it needs leadership.
Mhm.
That's straightforward. Now, what complications that creates when it comes time, or if it comes time to merge and become one? That's a risk you take. Do you take a calculated risk and say, I might have to work around somebody's contract and make it work when we fold in and say, hey, there's two chiefs, there's only one position, best person wins?
Mhm.
That might be. Or do you say, we're going to stick with something a little more flexible that allows us to get to the end goal faster? I really think it really depends on if we're going towards this Union Municipal District. If you're not, then we gotta get a chief. That's,
Yeah.
there's no question about that. But if you're moving towards that goal, do you
Still need
still
leadership.
move
Yeah.
right there?
I mean, I agree with you, and I think Kara said it before too. That yeah, if we're gonna move towards a Union Municipal District, it would be hard to attract a quality chief candidate, knowing that the future's a little uncertain. That's where it might make sense to say, okay, do we look for a more, do we do a larger search for an interim chief, similar to what we were gonna do with Hinesburg? The part of that goal was to get an interim chief to kind of look at both departments, to run them in the short term, but also help us move towards a Union Municipal District or a cooperation of some sort. So I think a lot of it does hinge on that. I mean, for the immediate short term, I'm gonna be appointing Matt as the interim chief for now. But I think we do need some more feedback from our select board as well as Hinesburg's as far as where our next steps are gonna be. And I think that will then help us determine what's the next chief and hiring step.
okay, so that's, I think, a well-phrased question. Do we want? If we go Union Municipal District, we're creating problems for ourselves. We have to really be certain that that's what we want to focus on. Do we want to look at hiring a chief and setting Union Municipal District aside for the time being? I'm seeing a nod from David. I
Well,
think
there's short term, medium term, and long term. Short term, we need well, a chief, whether that be a temporary or whatever, but
Can I say something? I'm not sure that you need a chief. You need an officer in charge. All right, so take a look at,
the term chief.
no, I know, but take a look at the statute so you don't put yourself in a corner someplace. Is take a look to see if you need an officer in charge. And if that officer in charge may need a mentor, perhaps from another police department that they can call, because that works as well. And if you're gonna look for a police chief, is one of the requirements I would think should be a part of the person coming here is that they're gonna be involved. If in fact you want to go to this municipal district, that they're going to be involved in that. So they're going to be able to see what's going on. That may be exciting for them. Because I can tell you, when we were looking at when I was in Milton, looking at other agencies that we could work with and talking with the other chiefs, it didn't matter to us who the chief was because we knew as a chief, we would be there in some sort of administrative position because those two departments would need that kind of structure.
I
As
think
well.
I think it's two different types of candidates, right? If the Union Municipal District is not an option, it's a candidate who's looking to stay here long-term and build a small department. If
Correct.
the Union Municipal District is in play, it's a candidate who says, okay, I realize that this position may no longer exist in a year or two once they merge. Maybe somebody who's more at the end of their career or willing to take that risk for a year that they may not become the chief of the Union Municipal District. But I think having that transparency when we go out to search for any sort of a chief, we need to have that to give that to the candidates.
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this out there. I know we have two hands up. Should the guidance from the board at this point be, let's focus on getting a chief? Or not?
It's not the direction I'm leaning. I feel like.
Okay, but direction.
My sense, and this is very short synopsis, is that we keep focusing on what we're gonna do short term.
Yes.
And we need to look down the road because we're gonna be in this boat again. If we focus on getting a chief, we'll get a chief and things can fall apart. If we really look down the road 5-10 years from now where we want to be, we should work to that. And it might be more painful in the short term, but we set the town up better for a decade from now. We need to get in that mindset on this because it's not going to be a short-term solution.
Yes.
Art?
I think the same thing. I think we should at least start with a similar kind of question. Where do we want to be 5 or 10 years from now? Our sort of medium to long-term goal. And I think that is a partnership, like whether it's municipal district or another vehicle, that seems like the vehicle with another town or two, which may be Hinesburg, they're logical, is because they're next to us. But if it's not gonna work with them, then as was mentioned here today, I think we need to cast our net more broadly.
You, David?
Yeah, short term, I think we need, as Bob alluded to, some sort of supervisor. But yeah, long term, I think we need to be thinking about some sort of regionalization because we're stuck in the same problem.
You, Caitlin?
Yeah, I think there needs to be, the word chief is being used, but what I think we're saying is we need to have someone who can come in and help us hire the open officers we have. I think we need to look at compensation, look at the market values and understand what that looks like in terms of the positions that we have open. But additionally, looking for someone who can come in, maybe have a mentor. I really like that idea in another town, or, you know, whoever we decide to do that, to be the leadership within this until we get to the end goal, which would be shared services or whatever, combined district.
So I'm hearing a pretty clear direction. I'm gonna call on 2 more people and then we're going to move on to the next agenda item. 3, because I see another hand. But Marie, you've had your hand up longest, so if you would, please.
Yep. I have a couple of points I want to make. Leadership is key. And without it, people flounder. I think it's important to have somebody providing leadership. In the meantime, I'd like you to think about how long it took to do the original Hinesburg agreement. I don't know, but I would expect any other agreement would be similar. And so there needs to be something in the interim. And overall, I would say in general, Kate, I think you speak my mind. Most of what you said, I agree with. But, and I like the idea of someone there to help with the hiring.
Okay, Patty?
Yeah, I'd like to, this committee, the Police and Governance Committee did not meet very many times. It was like maybe 5 times. And I felt like the most important meeting, the most informative meeting where people didn't go around in circles, was when Jim Baker came and spoke to the group. And there are many things that attract an officer. We tried a car, cars didn't work. Okay, we might want to not do a car and give people more money. You know, maybe we can find out what is the sweet spot. But he was very clear that Richmond and Hinesburg are not going to find quality in a teeny little town like ours. It's just not going to happen now in the world that we live in. We can pay a lot of money, because the other thing that officers are looking for is diversity. You know, one of the things that was good, that came out when he was saying, you know, if Hinesburg and Richmond paired together, well, there'd be maybe 8 officers and a chief. And then you could have an investigation team, and you could have, you know, there'd be interesting things that people could do and broaden their career. And there'd be more opportunities for these officers in a larger group of people. And a chief would be more interested in that as well. A person would be more interested in being the chief of something like that. So it's not just money. You know, if we're talking right now about trying to do what we've been trying to do forever, which is have a chief and a little police department, it's probably not gonna work. And I think that this municipal district sounds like it's kind of the only game in town in terms of, you know, like you could say, let's try to contract with Williston the way we did with Hinesburg, but you're still gonna get stuck with union differences in what people's benefits are, you know, and it's still gonna be a problem. So I'm hoping that you guys will decide strongly in favor of a unified municipal district with just 2 towns. You know, people were saying in the committee at that meeting, well, maybe we could do 3 or 4, you know, and he says, you know, just keep your shirt on. 2 would be hard enough. But you know, it's just separate things. So all the officers they would belong to all of us. They'd maybe have a Hinesburg Richmond patch on, and so forth. But to the leadership that Marie was just talking about, you know, as a member of Richmond Racial Equity, leadership is extremely important. What kind of culture? I don't want just any old body in here. I don't want you to just hire someone that has chief credentials. It's very important to me, and I think to many people in town, the type of culture that is created by this chief. They can mold those officers that may have been a little bit rough around the edges and so forth, because this is the culture. This is how we treat the people of Richmond and Hinesburg. And you know, we're not looking to punish people and catch as many people speeding, you know, or whatever. You know, we're going to try to educate people, and we're going to try to care for people. You know, and honestly, I see Matt doing that all the time. I see him doing that to members of our community in my neighborhood, caring for people who are in trouble. So we have some of what we want right now. So I really feel like go for the municipal district, decide you're going to do that, and start working on that tomorrow. What's that going to be? And in the meantime, I'm so interested, Bob, that you said that we don't have to hire a chief. We could hire someone who could be mentored by a chief, theoretically.
Well, you have somebody who can be the officer in charge, and that's Matt.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And does he need somebody, as we all do, in whatever we're doing in life, to be able to pick the phone up? Mm-hmm. And I can tell you in the mid-90s, when I did their hiring process for Richmond, is that we actually had a lieutenant from the Essex Police Department who came in and supervised the police department. And the police chief from Essex was gracious enough to let that individual do that. So, I mean, there's people out there. There are chiefs within this community, if they're approached in the right manner, that would be there for Matt.
And I already know a couple who would,
right,
that I've already mentored under.
Mm-hmm.
And that means in the middle of the night, when nobody's around, you get that phone call. I've done that myself. So I get that. And you would want somebody that might be level 3, I'm sure, which means the highest that you can get as far as a certified officer in the state, because then they could come out if they had to help investigate.
So we're going to wrap this up. We're going
Okay.
Kara's comments, and we're going to move on to the next
I
agenda.
have a quick comment after Karen.
Okay, sure.
I work in a building in downtown Burlington. One of the companies in the building pays the sheriff's department. a fully armed officer to sit in a vehicle outside the building for up to 6 hours a day, the 3 hours in the morning and the 3 hours at leaving time, because one of their employees was held at gunpoint during a drug deal, going to the parking garage. So I've had a conversation with the sheriff's department, and they would be interested in contracting to Richmond for maybe short term or maybe long term, depending on how long it takes for you to create your municipal situation. But I'm just putting that out there. I know Patty's shaking her head as in they're not the kind of officers you want.
Right.
But I think you have the ability, to explain to them what you're looking for. But my point is, during the discussion that Patty had, saying that small towns don't attract quality, I believe Richmond has a quality officer, and I believe Hinesburg have quality officers. So yes, small towns do have quality where we have it now. So I'm just putting out there other solutions, that if we turn down all of our solutions, that's where we get where we're at today.
Okay, David?
Matt, I just want to thank you in the time that we've worked together. I can't tell you how many times we've stumbled across a situation and you very optimistically said, let's try this. Let's try this. How about that? How about this? And this is another one of those situations. I feel badly that it happened and I was kind of blindsided by it, but I appreciate your patience and your optimism and your continued hard work. And the feedback that we get is very, very positive. Which of course makes us feel good, but you deserve the credit.
I appreciate the kind words.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for commenting, especially.
Duke, you can get.
Sorry, can I just make one quick
Yeah.
comment? I think like to wrap this up and talk about the next steps, I think we understand that we're gonna sue the district, but I think like my number one goal in how we think about this is how do we maintain and retain Sergeant Cohen, because I think we have, and of course Duke, we have something very special in having you in town and as part of our community, and I don't want to lose that. And so as we're exploring the process, I appreciate your input and I appreciate you being here and telling us what you need to, so appreciate it.
Just a final step, I'm sorry, Jay, that we left the meeting with Hinesburg saying we would take it to our select board and come back with clarity. So I just want to be clear that we've said we have interim work to do, but we are interested in medium to long-term suing a partnership.
Yes.
With somebody, right?
And they are a candidate.
Our dance card is open. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is the ever popular subject of parking enforcement on Dugway Road,
Thanks, Bob.
West White Hill, and the eastern end of Cochran Road. And once again, I'm just gonna make this easier by asking Josh to, and Sergeant Cohen to go over this.
Sure. So after the last meeting, we picked out a few different ideas and Sergeant Cohen and I sat and went over them and kind of boiled down to, I think, the 4 bullet points here for the board to consider. I think all of them would require ordinance change. One is set a higher parking ticket fee for the recreational roads than we would in the village. Allow for towing companies to be accredited to tow cars on their own without an officer present. Explore hiring a community service officer, which would be a part-time paid employee to write parking tickets. They would not be a certified law enforcement officer, and the revenue from the parking tickets would help pay for their time. It's $50 ticket, they write a couple of those an hour, they're paying for their time. Or maybe a higher ticket fee. And also give authorization to highway foreman and assistant highway foreman to tow cars that are parked illegally. That really wouldn't be so much for the summertime parking, but that's more winter parking when they can get cars out of the way for plowing. I don't know, did I miss anything?
Can you repeat that one that you just said about the highway foreman?
Yeah, give the highway foreman the ability to have cars towed.
Oh, okay. Not that he wouldn't have to tell him. Okay.
No, he would call tow company.
Basically having the authority to tow under the ordinance.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Important distinction.
So Pete's not gonna be towing cars himself. He's
I
got plenty
appreciate
in it.
Okay, so Matt, you want to pick up there?
Yeah, so obviously the fees and fines we can address. I don't think that really stops the underlying problem of what do we do to address the people parking. I think having either an individual that is a non-sworn officer, like basically a summer intern almost, but that is a part-time person to come in on the warm day, especially when the police department isn't staffed to be out there. If days that we are not on call, state police will not come out to a municipal issue when it comes to an ordinance. They don't deem that as an emergency. So the more we're able to be out to police it, the more enforcement it will happen. So if we had a individual similar to what Burlington does, I'm kind of pulling from other resources. Burlington hires community service officers who are there as non-sworn individuals, as eyes and ears, basically for the department, and can enforce municipal ordinances. There'd be some process to that of the hiring and training of a person, but it'd be much simpler than or less intensive than a whole officer. Because their job would be really to address the behavior of parking illegally. The tow companies, I don't know what the taste is for the tow companies. They actually even want to engage in a process like that, but that'd be another avenue where we can say, okay, we want to accredit tow companies. It'd be under our control. Tow company A, B, and C they put an application. We review their application, make sure they meet our standards that we have already set. They then can come out and tow at their will for anybody who's in violation, in that they also issue basically a fee or ticket that gets kicked back to us. They would be a process that they would have to follow to make sure that they're towing people legally. I'm not the attorney, but I would run it by an attorney too, to make sure that there's no real liability on the town. I think that if there ever was, let's say a tow company violated what they're supposed to be doing and illegally towed a car that was not in, that we, like, say they adjudicate the ticket and they said, this was a legally parked car, and they towed my legally parked car, probably we would have to pay that tow fee at the end of the day. That's probably our extent of liability for that car if it was legally towed, and then we'd probably say next year they don't get renewed on that process. But again, that relies on other entities being willing to come out and tow. That being said, it's hard to get tow companies to come out and tow. I tried Monday. There was 3 companies that weren't able to come out, and finally one did agree to come out. And I feel bad because I had been down there for 45 minutes to a car that was unsafely parked on the roadway, blocking the road in an unsafe spot. With my lights on, trying to get people, I was like, go down, someone find this, whoever's owner of this car, to move it, because we just need to move it. It's just not safe. And probably about 5 minutes before the tow company was about to show up, the owner comes and moves it, which is one of the risks for these tow companies. If they're already on scene, they don't have that risk. So if they're already doing it themselves and they're there, they don't have that risk they have the risk that there's nobody to tow, but the likelihood of there being no one to tow that's parked illegally is slim until we start highly enforcing it.
It's time.
So those are kind of some of our options.
So I had 2 thoughts, and I'm wrestling with first, is this a thing that tow companies patrol public roads and just pull them?
I think Burlington does it with their winter parking ban. They have tow companies just pull, and when they come in, someone calls the police, they say, my car was stolen. Especially when
parked.
Where was it parked? And have you called this tow company yet to see if they have your car?
So that's the one I'm aware of, but that one's easy because anywhere in this street you can't park,
Right.
as opposed to you parked incorrectly on this street.
They have splines do it and they tow you out of your own driveway, my personal experience.
It's happened.
Why did they do that?
Because
they could.
So, right, so I was thinking the same thing. I think where you were headed is if they're doing certain stretches of road on certain days, where there's a high probability, then I was thinking, actually, for the second piece, for the community service officer, one of the things I think that works in Burlington is there are police officers who are available for backup, or if something escalates and they're available. So that was just my thought, that you probably want to make sure that officers were scheduled at the same time and available in case something escalated.
Right. And I know I was supervising that person, I'd make it very clear to them that if someone comes back to their car and they are, showing up and moving the car for you, it's time to take that ticket and just rip it up, because the behavior is being addressed by engaging with that person, saying you're illegally parked, please, this is how you park safely. That's more of the route. I would not want to put that civilian in harm's way. If someone's
Yeah.
escalated, it's time to back off.
Mhm.
What do people think about raising the ticket fee? We would have to pass an ordinance we'd have to amend the traffic ordinance to do this. But there's a little vengeful part of me that says we've tried everything short of this. They were ripping no parking signs down all summer. They were doing the same stuff that we've heard about, using the bathroom on people's lawns. The only thing I think that's gonna talk is when they get that $150 ticket.
What's the fee now? Sorry, not what is it? When was that set?
I will check.
Last year, or the year before.
It's recent, it's not.
Yeah, it's like 24, right?
40 years old.
Yeah, it's not like 10 years old and we haven't adjusted it or something.
No, that's where we were in before we adjusted it.
I think with the problem spots like Dugway, we need to engage a towing company and kick it up. I mean, it's unsafe and it's been a problem for years.
According to ChatGPT, it says default parking sign has been in place since 2013. We did change parking and speed limits in 2022 and 2023, but it doesn't find any evidence of the actual fine having been raised since 2013.
No, we definitely.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay, yeah, if you can find it, check local,
Yeah, I think I'll check, I keep tracked on the.
local minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
check local minutes, because I'd like to know that. And in Richmond
I think it
Lab.
was $25.
Almost year.
Yes,
Yeah, it's now $50.
yeah, we
I
doubled
think it
it.
was 2022, parking and speeding changes effective May 2022.
It's $50 now, but was it said that in 2022 or is it?
I think it was 2022.
Yeah, we doubled it from 25 to 50.
Chase, someone in the audience might know some details that.
I was just curious, what percentage of those tickets actually get paid?
It's a good question.
You asked that last time.
Did I?
Yep.
Cool.
You don't
answer. I don't have the answer.
I don't, and
What percentage of these questions get answered?
It's a good.
Actually, I see it here, it was March 13th, 2023, that we raised it to
A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Could we, since if we don't have it tonight, is it possible to come back with that data the next time? How many people pay
Just Making a
their?
point of, does it even, like,
It doesn't.
is it a deterrent?
What's like the mechanism here too? Like, so
no, I have that.
is it in our ordinance, do we can send collections, we can escalate them, we can boot cars, like what if,
We don't want to boot them. We want to tow
yeah, but like, what's like the
I actually,
progression?
I got that from Connie just today.
Okay.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
I brought this up last time and I heard Josh talk about recreational parking areas raising the fee. And just to reiterate my point, if I accidentally forget to take my car off the street on November 2nd on a day that it's not snowing, I'd rather not get 150, but if the police feel they need to remind me with a $50 ticket, that might be more acceptable. So if you're gonna go down that path of raising it for select areas, then you're also gonna have to decide what those select areas are. But I would encourage you, if you raise it, to focus on select problem areas and not
Yeah.
the
Oh, I would
make the
agree.
police choose between a very high ticket price and nothing at all, if that's a minor fraction. Thank you.
Right, we have problem areas, as you said. I think we should focus on those. Marie?
My comment would just be, it doesn't do any good to raise the price of the ticket if we don't have a sign, right, especially at the foot of West White on Dugway that says, the ticket's now $150. Same with up at the Gorge. So I would just ask if we raised tickets, which I'm highly in favor of for those areas, that we also make the signage really obvious, because I think that in itself would help.
Agreed. Kara?
Do you have a database for every ticket that you issue, plus the value of that ticket, and then some way of confirming that if that ticket is paid or not?
Is that all in Valcor?
So no, there's different controls. Actually, I asked Connie for this information. She sent it to me. So the controls that are in place is the police officer writes the parking ticket in accordance with town ordinances. A copy of ticket is given to the finance department to log into an established log. Payments made to the town clerk or to assistant town clerk, issues receipts accordingly, stamp the ticket and give the finance assistant for a recording. The finance assistant logs the payments, gives the ticket to the police department for their records. Each quarter, the finance assistant reviews the logs, pulls the tickets that have not been paid. The tickets that are given to the police department to obtain the name and mailing address belonging to the plate number of the ticket. The tickets then, the tickets and the owner information is given back to the finance assistant. The finance assistant will then send a past due notice to the owner of the vehicle listed on the ticket. 3 late notices will be issued, after which time a decision will be made as to whether further actions will be paid. That's the town policy on the tickets.
Right, but unfortunately, I don't think for the last few years we've been following
Well,
that. I think it transferred at one point from finance to Diane was doing it. And this is Diane's, but we haven't been very tight on doing all the tracking, following up with letters.
Yes,
Budget this year.
Right.
but
You know, obviously, if it's $150, it's much more, it's worth facing.
chasing those,
It's a lot, it is, it's a lot of,
because
a
that,
lot of steps to chase down.
Even-
25.
even in that policy coming back and the back end work of getting all the names and information and mailing is ours, that's granted, we have the admin assistant job that we could get filled and trained up, and that'd be part of their job. But
Staffing.
that is a staffing hours related issue.
Okay, Bob, select board, I'm looking at you. I would personally be very much in favor of raising the ticket cost, but I do want to find out what percentage actually ever get paid. Go ahead.
Jay, I think first I support a targeted raising of the tickets in the problem areas. I suspect that some cities already do this, that high value or high risk areas of higher tickets. I also think it behooves us to look at the process we use, because if we write tickets and they rip them up and throw them away and nothing ever happens, probably not an effective ticketing strategy.
Right. At present, $25 is a parking fee.
50.
It's 50,
50 is a parking fee. Yeah.
which is about on par with where Burlington's parking tickets are, I think $56, something like that. So that's about on par for just generic parking tickets.
Burlington has enforcement.
They have enforcement and they have the programs in place, like the databases, and to do all this on the background without having the man hours to have it actually
Yeah,
go in and do it.
like systems in place.
But you gotta pay for those systems.
My sister got a
Ahead.
$3 parking ticket in 1984, and she sent them a check, and they sent it back saying that she didn't get it to them within 3 business days. And she explained to them that Friday she got the ticket, Saturday, Sunday were weekends, Monday was a holiday, they got it on Tuesday. So as far as she was concerned, she paid it, and tough. That was 1984. She died in 1989. I still own the car and I'm still getting payment demands.
Oh my gosh.
You have this like collected in a little script.
Yeah, part of the car is provenance.
Okay,
So we got like so our parking tickets, $50 is pretty standard for like a parking on a meter violation, kind of the high end and that stuff. But when we start like talking about prohibited parking or fire lane, blocking a hydrant, handicapped and parking ban stuff, most Middlebury is like between 50 and 250, and Burlington's like 125 and up, everything. So 50 is low.
I was gonna say 814, it's right on time. For
50
being
is
late.
pretty low.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'd say a minimum of 150, provided we can enforce it.
No, I'm not opposed to increasing the tickets, but we need to start towing.
The only thing I'll say is I am firmly opposed to giving towing company authority to do that. And
Certain towing companies, yeah.
yeah, but like, I don't know if once we open it up, I don't know that cat will go back in the bag, so
I'll put that cat back in the bag.
we'll do that.
Okay,
I've seen so many surrounding areas in towns where it just goes off the rails quick, and like giving
Yeah.
someone who has a specific financial stake to tow people's cars, and like, it's kind of, it, as much as it's maybe not meant to be, it always turns into, you have to prove that they did something wrong, and you can't, you don't have pictures of your car parked legally all the time, so there's no way to prove it was, so.
Okay, Karen?
Well, the good news is if you go to 150, you've, more than doubled your revenue of those who actually do pay, if they're going to pay. So it might help pay for that person if you're gonna have a person out there writing tickets. I do not think a police officer, we should pay a police officer, especially when we're gonna increase the pay to our police officers in the very near future to write parking tickets. So if you're going to want to talk about your enforcement down the road, I do think your seasonal person that Matt is talking about, hiring them on to just write tickets. But the number one way to make people stop the bad habit isn't just by paying. It's by, where is my car?
Yeah.
That's
No,
the
I think
number
that's
one way to have
I
people.
just want there to be someone in between the guy in the tow truck and the car that's getting towed, someone that's like,
Well,
they don't have the financial stake and they don't, so.
tried it, and this is what just happened with Matt saying 45 minutes later, the tow truck gets there within 5 minutes, the car's been moved. So you're going to burn your bridges with tow truck companies. So maybe if you have the meeting with the tow truck owners of the company and say, these are the procedures, you have to take pictures, you have to do the following stuff, you have to prove to the select board if it ever comes back around that you were doing what you were supposed to be doing.
I guess I would entertain it
Tow
if there
truck
was
companies.
a contract in place where that, like, if they, when they mess up, they pay us enough that their owner is specifically telling them, like, you do not have.
It's reasonable,
Okay.
but I just think that us going the same way we've always gone right now isn't working, and that's why we've had it for multiple meetings on.
Privatizing parking and policing and all that stuff really gets me fundamentally, so, and this is like a small step in that direction.
That you mentioned has a history of doing something like that, and we just wouldn't allow them to have a contract with us if that's the case. You have the power to.
They will not.
Like, and that's one piece of the puzzle, like you would have the control of your policy and those you accredit.
Okay.
So you can make a company accredit with you and repeatedly, year after year, make sure that they are an approved company, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and we should have the controls to audit and review it. Like that, if I just like, someone can audit the police department, someone can audit me and say, how many car stops did you do this week? And race data collection and make sure I'm, not targeting individuals of a certain anything. We can do that same with a tow company, as long as we set up our policy in that way.
Okay. So next steps, it sounds like we want to get some data on parking ticket payment. And I'm hearing various things about, do we want to give fishing permits to tow companies? And we don't have to take any bid, but would this be a bid process where they would bid for the privilege?
Well, we put a request out for a proposal and
Right.
we'd have very specific criteria.
We could just hire Pinkertons to do it.
I like the term accreditation. We accredit a company to do it.
I mean, I think it could be more than one company too,
Right.
right? It doesn't have, it's not like an exclusive rights to contract here. It could be a couple of tow companies. If we say, okay, your fee's reasonable, you've taken the training, you're accredited, you can tow under
Yeah.
these circumstances.
And be there
It's not really hard. Yeah.
They're right there.
Yeah.
We have one Matt, so Matt has to drive Dugway Road, find the cars, call the company, wait for them to show up. Whereas if we have a contract,
Right.
Matt doesn't have to do that.
Right.
They patrol, oh, got it, got
Right.
it, got it, got it.
But we have
got
to,
it.
as Matt has said, and several people have said, we have to keep an eye. Okay, so it sounds like
Good.
we're wanting to look at a request for proposal.
Well, I don't think we need a request for proposal.
I mean,
We need to-
we'd have to draft one.
Well, I think we need to, so we would change the ordinance. So I think the next
Right.
thing is come back with a draft of
Yes.
the ordinance to change it, because all of this has to go in the ordinance.
Yeah.
And then we would have to have an accreditation process so that we could accredit tow companies that are interested in doing it.
Okay,
Because it's not, again, it's not exclusive, so we could have 4 different tow companies that we all accredit and say, yeah, you guys are good to go, you got the training on, here's the contract, you're all set.
okay.
I think so, but it's first is
I'm sorry.
the ordinance.
Sorry, I thought you were done, Patty.
So 2 things. One, I think Marie's suggestion of signs that are really sturdily put in that say how much of a fine this is. That's a huge turn to me. If I see something, I want to really make sure I'm parking right. Cause I don't wanna get that kind of a ticket. I think that'll really straighten things out a lot. And as a person that goes swimming on Dugway Road all the time and parks on Dugway Road all the time, it's not just, all these out of towners that everybody seems to be talking about. It's people with their kids and their grandchildren and so forth going swimming. And the rule is, right now, it says, do not park on the traveled portion of the road. Okay, that's what it says. And so what I'm always trying to do is go, so where's the traveled portion of this road? And so I go by like, there's no rocks, that's nice and smooth.
The shiny dirt.
I can see the shiny dirt, so I'm gonna pull over and make sure that my this road's in the ditch and this road is on the gravelly stuff. But it's very tricky for some tow company to be driving along and go, they're on the, like, I think there's no line, it's a dirt road. I mean, it's a very difficult thing. So just know that's a difficult thing to ask of this towing company. It could be that, Matt, you might have to train them about, like, that car's cool, this one is totally not. Because I hear you talking about safety as opposed to, oh, she's 2 inches to the left of this, like, I don't know where the travel portion of the road is, honestly, when I'm on Dugway.
And I will say there's some who are on the travel portion of the road who I would not tow because they're not a safety hazard. I usually save towing for safety hazards. So if there's around the corner, it's blocking almost a full lane of travel.
Yeah.
We have safety issues. That's what I typically save towing, requesting for a tow truck. Otherwise, you're on the travel portion of the road, you can get your ticket, and that should be your lesson.
Okay. So you would have to kind of put up those guidelines for the towing company. So it's tricky. It's not so straightforward because there's no lines anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
I've seen Patty parking. She does a pretty good job. But
You do a good job.
But you're down by the S turn where there's a lot of room to park. But when you get up by triple buckets.
Yeah, I don't park up there.
It's a very difficult place to park. There's not a lot of parking. And I think the signs that say don't park in the travel portion of the road should just go. And they should just put no parking at any time along that portion of the road on either side, except in those very visible parking spaces where sadly you've got 4 or 5 parking spaces, maybe 10. But once people fill those spots, everyone else just kind of adds on.
Yeah.
And there's those signs that say don't park in the travel portion of the road. But like Patty's saying, it's hard to determine if you're not familiar. If you just had a no parking sign, then you can just tow them. And the tow truck driver doesn't have a problem. I know you're trying not to be punitive, which, you don't want to be unreasonable, but
I mean, like setting.
I think you're just gonna get more of the same.
Yeah, if we make it clear, like, yes and no versus maybe kinda. Feel good about what we do. It's not like there's no interpretation.
You did that on Cochran Road. You did a whole section of no parking. So, I mean, I think you should look at your Dugway Road again when you're looking at your ordinance.
Okay. Yeah. John, you're on the parking committee. Do you want to add anything else?
Well, I thought the parking committee had looked at it and made recommendations as to where you were gonna stop, where you weren't gonna have parking. You have a new ordinance that's put that into effect. Perhaps what partly I'm hearing was you didn't go far enough. We should have even less parking. It's legal. Am I hearing that? I thought the right decision was made at the time. As far as whether you want to define it better, that could the case could be made. There's a chance the signs would be violated, but I thought the number of parking spaces was appropriate.
Okay. So it sounds like we would want to get the data about payment and start drafting an ordinance.
And maybe make some more safe parking. How about more parking for people to enjoy the river and be cool when it's 90 degrees? We eliminated a lot of parking on that road.
Well, part of it is because of historic problems with ambulances and rescue vehicles literally not being able to get through.
No, I mean, they narrowed the road.
Okay.
There could be more parking made.
Okay. Well, that's outside my pay grade, but
That'd be a Pete question.
you know. We could just put like a multi-story parking garage right there at the end of West White Road and just call it a day, charge admission. You know, it cost a bit, but we'd fund the town for the rest of time with that. Okay, so I guess it looks like we're ready to move on to the next topic. Matt, Duke,
Yep,
thank you so much.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you.
Okay. The next topic is signs.
Thank you.
Okay. We're once again going to talk about signs. We have in the packet some sample policies relating to flags. But I know the $64,000 question that people are wanting is what research we have done and answers we have gotten on the subject of the legality of the existing sign. Keith Oborn was our planning and zoning director, was out on vacation in Ireland, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, in Ireland. He did not come back with a leprechaun hat that I know of. But he did have time today to send a memo on the subject, which I will go ahead and share. Assuming I can.
Okay.
Yeah, you gave me a middle.
Yeah.
Okay. So here is his memo coming up. August 29th, to Richmond Selectboard, Keith Oborn. And then he says, I've been asked by the town manager to comment on the legality of the existing signage located on the town center parcel. And then these are references to our ordinances. The two things that he's bolded, all signs hereafter constructed, yada, yada, shall comply with the requirements of the zoning district in which the sign is located, including the dimensional requirements for structures, except as otherwise specifically provided. Then scrolling down here, this is the other thing that he's highlighted. Sign regulations shall not apply to official federal, state, or town signs, including traffic signs, which are erected and intended for public information, direction, safety, or control purposes. And that's all the memo says.
Yep. Doesn't do that.
Well, I followed up with him on it as well verbally this afternoon. In his opinion, the sign out front is in compliance because it's on government property, it's a government sign. He says he would like to see a permit for it. He has just some concerns, I think, about how close it is to the road or what it's made out of. So we can submit a permit for that sign, but he said he would, he feels allows it.
Pardon?
It's not, in violation, in other words.
I think that's a good way to summarize it.
So it's allowed but not permitted.
Yeah, he even said that
So
when
it's permitted.
well, yeah, when I was talking to him, he said you may technically not even need a permit for it because there's a government exemption, a blanket exemption. But he said he'd like to see a permit just to make sure that it, complies with site distances or setbacks, things like that. And then certainly we can put in a permit for that. It's a little weird if there's something, we don't need a permit, but we do. I'm like, I'm happy to put a permit in.
Caitlin, David, anybody else comment, questions? Okay, questions from the people listening, Kara?
This is referring to traffic signs, including traffic signs that are intended for public information, directions, safety, or control purposes. You've stated that this sign out there is the select board's opinion. So I think you need to understand what you've claimed in public versus what this is referring to.
I read it differently in terms of where the commas go. The last section, you could strike including traffic signs. The last section in my reading applies to all official federal, state, or town signs. So then the question is not, is it a traffic sign, but is it an official?
Right, that's my
sign.
But the question is, that I'm asking you, Barb, is under what official area? You're saying that strike everything and just stop at town signs.
So then it's erected and intended for public information, direction, safety, or control. Let's assume it's not direction, safety, or control. Is it then public information?
Well, as was mentioned at our last meeting, it is basically restating the town's principle of diversity, equity, inclusion, and general welcomeness. And I think you could make a case for it is indicating this town is welcome to all, but potato, another person might not think that.
I thought you said it was the select board's opinion, and that's what the argument was at the last meeting.
Well, that is governmental speech, which is why we don't have to put up a sign for every other political point that someone would like to make. But is it also, is it the speech of the select board stating that the town policy is that all are welcome, that Black and brown lives matter?
Yes.
And hence public information.
But it says shall not apply to official federal, state, or town signs. It doesn't say exclusive to traffic signs. It says including traffic signs.
Question is it official? That's the $64,000
Yeah,
question there.
Is it an official town sign?
In the most basic sense, whether we like the sign or not, we are officials and they put the sign up. Does that not make it official? Like, I don't understand, like,
Did you pay for it? Did you put it up?
an official action. If anything that has to happen by a select board or some quasi judicial body, such as the DRB, it would be an official decision, right?
Okay, June?
I guess I'm not a lawyer, so I have no idea.
June may have insight on this, June.
Yes, I think if you change the language to say including but not limited to traffic signs, which are erected and intended for public information, like including but not limited to,
Right.
could make it very clear that you have approved this sign as the town officials.
Okay, that sounds plausible to me. Select board members,
Or we could just permit it.
or we could just permit it.
Just permit it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a little nervous about changing an ordinance to,
To accommodate our,
Yeah.
that doesn't sit right with me.
yeah.
Let's just I don't think we just permit it then.
Does that solve, if we permit it, do you think that solves it?
I mean, I think Keith says even that, yeah, I think part of the initial question was 2 signs per property, right? Is that allowed?
Can you roll back up to the top of this?
So I think
Where it
that,
says, this is talking about blanket exemption for signs. So you guys can put, I guess I'm confused with the fact, the exemption of a permit for you guys. I don't think you have an exemption for a permit on other things that you have to do in town, like the Browns Court, the Volunteers Green, any other property you own in town, you've gotten permits for everything you've done, including putting up signs. What makes this property, in your eyes, exempt from having to permit a sign than any other property that you've owned in town and gotten permits for? That's where I'm confused. If you're not exempt from the permitting process itself to put a structure, forget about the fact that it's a sign. If you put a post in the ground as a structure, if you are not exempt from the permitting process, then how are you exempt from the sign process if it's going to be a structure permanently put in the ground?
Because this ordinance says we are, I don't know. I guess we could probably have written our ordinance so the town was exempt from our own permitting too, right? We didn't, not saying we should go
So
back
that's-
to the construction. That's how it was written, so that's why we can disagree. I do think that's kind of messed up in some sense.
well, I think we
But
could put,
this was not, I'm guessing this situation was not what was in mind at the time. It was having like a fire department sign and a town sign and a highway department sign out there. It's like, oh, well, the town should be able to have multiple signs and they shouldn't need a permit for it. Let's write this accordingly. And so this is what we have. Well, this is Heath's interpretation of what we have now, but
Right.
that's how we got here. I would imagine. I would imagine this sign and a let's hire more police officers for 6 years sign were not the 2 things we envisioned when this was written. Does that make sense? So I don't know.
I think you've gotten permits for other things is all my.
Okay, I have no problem pursuing a
I think
permit.
we put the permit in, but I think then this saying that
I mean, I
where the
think we
sign is
did. right?
located would allow the permit to be approved. I mean,
That's how I construe it as
Yeah.
well.
we'll put the permit in and
So just to like be clear here, if we send this to Keith and he says you don't need a permit, we shouldn't get a permit. We should have Keith, what any other private person would do is get a letter saying, you have submitted a request. Based on my interpretation, you don't need a permit, please proceed. Right? Getting a permit that we don't need would not be what we would expect anyone else to do. What we would expect them to do is make a good faith effort to comply in the zoning administrator or director to state what his stance is and what the expected actions are.
I think that's a good Good question, ask Keith, and I'll ask him.
I would defer to him. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
expect him to treat us any differently. I expect him to read it and interpret it and
Yeah.
tell us what to do.
Makes sense.
I believe we have a comment in the
I
chat.
hope you make that, like, obviously, he knows that, but we should make that clear to him too, like, do what
Right.
he sees in the law.
We have a message in the chat saying the state allows you to get permits even when they aren't required for stormwater. Ian?
I brought something up with Josh today. I was curious, Radiate Art Space has their signs sprinkled all over the village right now, one in the front of the town center. So what's the policy for that, or do you?
I think technically speaking, they're illegal and we could go out and move them, but it's.
No, I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be able to put it out there, but is there a process?
So I did follow up with Keith a little bit more on that as well, but it's on town land, like town center of all fair screens. Technically, I think he said per the ordinance, it should actually go to the select board to be approved that, okay, the tenant of the town center can have a sign or cannot have a sign. If it's anywhere else, like if you wanted to put one up on your lawn or my lawn, those types of signs are exempt for 2 weeks.
Right.
And then they have to come in, so it's like, it would be like a political election sign or an event sign. I don't know if you could have just a Radiate Art Space sign, but if it was the Art Hop, you could have that for 2 weeks.
Right.
But if it was on this property or any other town-owned property, it should be going to the select board for approval.
Right.
And we have not in practice done that.
Right, so technically right now it's not legal, but there are bigger things in heaven and earth than enforcing signs about the R-Hop apparently. Want to continue, a follow-up? Okay.
So what's the final result of that? I'm not picking on Radiate, but I just started to think of the implications. So can the Historical Society and MMCTV put signs out there too?
And that's where I think it needs to come to the select board for those types of signs to make sure like, okay, you approve Radiate, you approve MCTV, maybe because they're tenants, but you don't approve some other nonprofit. And that's where I think it does get into sort of a tricky question of which signs are approved or not.
And what is even a sign?
But having talked about it tonight, I'm not comfortable just saying, oh, ignore it.
Yeah,
Because why doesn't the next person just put a sign up?
I think we take them down until then come back to the board for
Can they come in?
Approval, review and approval, and we'll say yes or no, right?
Can they send in requesting approval pending manpower to take them down or something? And
There's only like 6, right?
there's not that many. I mean, there's like,
That's just,
what about like the farmer's market sign?
Why don't you just have them
Yeah.
write a letter
Take
to you, and then you have it on record?
I
I guess my point would be that we don't want to. I agree with Bart that we don't want to let this slide because we have shown that it's an issue, but also we don't want to take the signs down even for 3 days for the art hop. So maybe,
So, but I don't think there's an R-Hop sign out yet.
is there, okay, so I'm saying whatever,
I
if the
think
signs are
there are
advertising an
Oh,
event.
it is R-Hop signs.
We don't want to take those down.
Yeah.
We realize that in the past, we have not handled this correctly, so send them a letter stating that moving forward, we would like them to do that. We will expect them to put the request in and we will, because of the precedent, we will we're gonna let it slide for now, and that's our.
Going forward.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to go take them all down and then like, you can go put it back up in a week when you've 2 weeks when you've requested it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we should. It's unreasonable to expect us to enforce the sign policy at some point in the future if we don't start enforcing it when we know that we're not.
Yeah.
We're in violation. And so as much as we all are in favor of Radiate, we do need to enforce it so that we have a leg to stand on in the future when we need to.
Yeah.
Right, that goes back to the whole question of having a more informed sign policy in the first place.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that everything we've discussed to this point is currently in zoning, we just need to enforce the zoning.
So it sounds like we simply need more enforcement.
Right,
I
if
think
you look at the zoning right
signs
now,
on town lawn, on town center, yes.
if you look at the zoning now, there's not something that says you must submit in writing something to the select board saying blah, blah, blah.
Actually, I think there is a section.
Really, that's,
Yeah.
okay, then we need to make that.
That's what I need, and I didn't have time to get that section directly cited for the meeting, but there is. They asked him, well, who should approve it? He said, oh, it says it's select board. I just don't have the chapter. for
Okay,
part of
then
it.
we probably need to do a better job communicating that to make it fair for everybody.
So can we come back to this maybe next time
Sure.
with that information and be clearer about what the process is for
I think so, yeah.
present and future signs?
Tara?
I know it was mentioned at the last meeting that possibly taking the town center sign, like most businesses, municipalities list, you have some listed there and just add additional signage to that. Is that a possibility? Or if you're gonna go a year-round sign, then I think you should do something more than what you have there. It should be more professional. If it's a municipality sign, I think it should be in line with your municipality town center building signs. This is a historic building. It should be more in line with that.
Richmond Town Center, town offices, radiate art space, MMC TV, all that in one thing, and then separate like art. Like our hop signs and stuff would be like approved on a case by case.
But on the sign though, I just wanted to bring up that you have a sign that's coming into the village that's falling down near the fire department. You have other signs that I hope you are going to address maintaining, please. Welcome to the village.
Okay, so we have next steps.
Yep.
Okay. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Consideration of accepting a bid for the Tesla.
Yeah. So we received 6 bids ranging from $8,004 to $20,200. Just for some background on the Tesla bids.
Can you say that range one more time, Josh?
Yeah, $8,004 to $20,200. Here, let me share my screen quick. Oh, so you can see it.
It's in it.
I guess you gotta shoot your shot.
I know, right? And just so to recap the history. We last went out to bid, we set a minimum bid of $23,000, which I believe was based on the direct blue book value. After we got no bids on that, the board was prepared to sell the Tesla to Carvana for $20,000. So right now we're at $20,200 for the high bid.
And the reason Carvana that didn't work out is because there was some question about what they would consider title or.
Yeah, it seems like they don't really work well with municipalities. They were looking for like articles of establishment, more like what you would need for a nonprofit. And we didn't really have what a nonprofit has to prove that we're a legal entity. It's weird. We gave them a lot of things that they wouldn't accept it. So we moved on to Carvana and now we have $20,200 on the table.
I will note that the select board members looking at the memo, the motion in the memo is incorrect. It says to accept the bid of $10,000, so just when you make that motion, please state it correctly. Are there any other questions about this, or are we ready for a motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to accept the bid of $20,200 for the purchase of the Tesla.
This is part, I second that.
We have a motion for David Fender, seconded by Bart Hill, to accept the bid for $20,200 for the purchase of the Tesla.
Can we just amend it to say for the sale of the Tesla?
You said purchase.
Yeah. So 2 typos. I know that's 2 out of 3, David.
You have the amendment, David?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me
The
read.
motion that stands is when David Sander moved, seconded by Bart Hill, to accept the bid of $20,200 for the sale of the Tesla. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Art, I.
Adam, I.
And Jane, aye. Okay, next item, we're chugging on down the track. Late 44, we might be able to get this done by 9, who knows? Consideration of holding a special select board meeting in 2025 for the presentation to the public and the select board of the initial draft of the town plan. Planning Commission will present the draft of the town plan to the select board and the public for comment. The proposed date is Tuesday, November 4th. The commission is hoping for a large turnout, so we will hold this meeting at the library. After this meeting, the Planning Commission will come back to the select board at the December 1st, 2025 meeting to ask the select board to approve the final version of the plan, taking into consideration feedback from the November 4th meeting. Any question or discussion, or somebody want to make the motion?
Jay, this is David. I move to hold a special meeting on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025 at the Richmond Free Library at 7 p.m. for the presentation to the public and to the select board of the initial draft of the town plan.
Is Bart, I second that.
Motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill to hold a special meeting on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025 at the Richmond Free Library at 7 p.m. for the presentation to the public and select.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Bart, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay. The next item is consideration of accepting an increase in the grant amount for the Emergency Watershed Protection Program related to the 2024 flooding to fund engineering for all the projects.
So initially, this grant came through with engineering being covered by the grant program, and there was no requirement of the town to hire an engineer. They had staffing cutbacks and were not able to provide the engineering for these 5 sites. They've asked the town to hire an engineer. We went out to bid for an engineer. We need $90,282.97 additional to cover the engineering for the 5 sites. We've actually already got an RFP for the engineer. We approved that either the last meeting or the meeting prior to that, but pending approval of the grant increase, this additional money will allow us to hire that engineer and complete the projects, or at least get the engineering completed. And again, this is no cost to the town. The engineering will be covered 100% by the grant, and any construction will be covered. I think it's 80% by the program, 20%, and that 20% will be passed along to the homeowners. The town is just a pass through for the grant and administrative work.
So at the federal level, we saved money by getting rid of people, and then they gave us the money to hire someone in the private sector. This is
Yep, I was thinking the exact same thing with that.
like the towing thing again.
Okay.
Jay, this is Caitlin and I move to accept the increase in funding to the Emergency Watershed Protection Program to cover the cost of engineering.
Jay, this is David. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Bilkins, seconded by David Sanders to accept the increase in funding to the Emergency Watershed Protection Program to cover the cost of engineering. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Bart, I.
Adam, aye. And Jay, aye. Okay. Consideration of approving a voting delegate. Every year at the VLCT Town Fair, which is happening this year at the DoubleTree in South Burlington. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the Property and Casualty Intermunicipal Fund, and the Employment Resource and Benefits Trust for have annual business meetings, and each town is asked to appoint a voting delegate. I've done that a couple of times because I love a party. It doesn't have to be a member of the select board. It could be our town manager who's already indicated he will be able to be there. Does anybody in particular want to be the voting delegate? I don't know who's planning on going.
And also, it looked like when I read it, the guidance online, they actually encourage you to attend via Zoom for this meeting. Yeah.
But for this happened, this is the day before the
Day
town.
before.
Right.
So they
this is-
said, yeah, like, please attend by Zoom, and then the next day is all the actual conferences.
Yeah, the first time I went to this, it was this.
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
So either way, go in person, you could go virtual, and if somebody else is appointed voting delegate and you really want to go to the meeting, you can still go to the meeting. You just can't do it.
So does anybody care, or shall we just make Josh in? Yeah, we have a motion from David Sanders, seconded by Bart Hill. I mean, going by the body language.
Yeah.
To appoint town manager Josh Arneson as a voting delegate from Richmond for the annual meetings of VLCT, Passive, and Verb. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Bart, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, last agenda item other than purchase orders and warrants and such. Consideration of setting dates for fiscal year budget meetings. Now, this is one of the most rose-colored things I think I've seen in a while, because I think last year we had scheduled 3 and had 7.
We
But-
might still have 7,
We might still have
but
7.
hopefully,
You
we start with 3.
Just did
Schedule
this.
7 and have 3.
That would
Seems
be
like a
better.
much better way to get it.
Okay, so we would do this on the second Monday of each month in October. However, the second Monday in October is Indigenous Peoples' Day, so the meeting would be held on the next day. I believe I'll still be out of town that day, but you guys can go.
I will also be out of town, I believe. Oh, is that the 7th or the
17th? Oh, sorry, 14th.
14th? I'm gone. I'm out of the country.
Yeah, I'll be out of the country too, so it'd be the 3 of you, And if one of you got sick, the meeting would not be able to be held.
No pressure.
So do we want to,
Can we do it sooner? Is it plausible?
Sooner might be tough.
So it's either we pull it forward or we push it.
could we do it on the 22nd of October, just, and then the select board meeting come back the following night for budget?
Well. The 21st of October, I think it would be right, because the 20th is that.
Oh, yes, you're right, the 21st of October.
Okay, so 21st, let me see, just check the calendar quick. if there's anything
I hate to
else.
throw a wrench in the works, but Tuesday are gonna be off limits for me for a lot of this fall.
How about Wednesday?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're looking at Wednesday, the 22nd. That is correct.
Should be fine. I'm not looking at my calendar.
Should be fine with me.
What are these guys?
I have no social life. That's fine.
I'm just checking a couple calendars to see if there's anything urgent scheduled either of those days. That we can't move out of this room. So the 22nd, we're looking at
Yeah, Wednesday, the 20th.
planning meeting, okay, nope, that's earlier in the day. Ooh.
That really doesn't sound good.
No, DRB, but it's their second meeting in October, so they may not actually meet. But if they did meet, they would probably need this room.
Okay,
We could look at. Well, gosh, I don't know if we want to, much, well, if we want the 29th of October, that would give us one,
I can't do the 29th of October, let's straight check it's coming to higher ground.
okay.
Yes, surf band out there. They play in luchador masks.
Well, we could, you know what, let's shoot for the 22nd. Let me check in with Keith to see if they need that night for a DRB meeting. A lot of times they don't need a second meeting
You guys can, I can also just call in and on the Tuesday.
on a Tuesday.
Like I won't be able to like participate as much, but I can stay in tune with what's
Do you
going
have
on.
kid duty?
Yeah, I could do that. So I can
Well-
call in and then, well, at least we'll get home at like 8:30 and then I can hop in. So.
I'd probably be zooming that sequence 21st, 22nd myself.
Yeah, I might have to Zoom as well, just because I already had children, just because children.
Bring kids in here, they learn.
Well, then what do you want to do? It sounds like the 14th isn't ideal, neither is the 21st or the 22nd. And again, it's the first meeting for the budget, and typically it's sort of a high level kind of run through. We really get into,
That's what I was thinking after last year, zooming into it and just keeping track of what's going on isn't gonna be the end of the world. It was the later meetings where we really had to dive into stuff.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what's your pleasure, the Tuesday, the 14th, or try to do the 21st and 22nd?
I just,
Tuesday.
Caitlin, I won't be able to be there on the 14th. I'm
I
gonna
know,
be in Slovenia.
But I'm just, well, maybe is the 21st better with zooming for you?
It
two?
doesn't matter to me. 21st, 22nd, I just can't, those are not my nights to commit to, so I must make sure that I.
22nd, but a bunch of us still.
Yeah,
Either.
sounds great.
Okay, let me just make sure that 22nd would be okay with DRB.
Second, yeah, 21st or the 22nd, so whichever.
So we'll make that tentative until
Yeah.
next time. Okay.
And we could also like, I mean, you don't need a motion tonight. We can do a
Yeah.
motion next meeting. We got a little bit of time. I just wanted to try to get them on the calendar. So that would be the deal.
Then we'll make the motion when you know for sure.
Okay,
So this is a hold on the 22nd. So
yeah, I think hold on the 22nd and 21st. I'll check. I mean, 22nd is preferred, right?
yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if not the 22nd, the 21st is second option. Okay, how do the other Mondays look for you guys in November and December?
Look fine for me.
Fine for me.
Back from cruises
I
and
won't be here the 10th.
the 10th of November.
Where are you gonna be? We'll come.
Yeah. Porto,
To Portugal.
yeah,
Let's go.
let's do it.
All right, what do we want to consider a different date for November or?
You guys,
Calendar's wide open in November.
my fall sucks.
Really? Okay.
November is kind of winter actually at this point. I don't know what that is. Noah Khan wrote a song about that and made a bunch of money. It's,
Easy.
okay.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do? Should we look for another night in November, or should we just go with the 10th?
You can go with it and I will stay in tune with it and have info ahead of time and or after for the 8th.
All right,
Okay,
I'll come back with October options.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
We could do the November 27th. I haven't found everything going on, so.
great. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I think that's that.
Okay, that moves us on in the agenda to approval of minutes, purchase orders and warrants. We have a motion to approve the minutes of August 18th.
Okay, this is David, so moved.
Bart second.
Okay, we have a motion, David Fender, seconded by Hill, to approve the minutes of August 18th. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, please state your name and about.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
J I. Okay, next, we have no purchase orders, so we need a motion to accept the warrants.
So moved.
Caitlin, second.
And we have a motion to accept the warrants by David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins. Are there any questions about any of the warrants? Seeing none, please take your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I. And Jay, aye. Items for next agenda. We've already listed it. We've already come up with a couple.
Yeah, we're good.
Sign policy.
Sign policy, finding out about the tickets.
Next agenda, we also have CCRPC.
Right, Charlie
Yeah.
Baker will be here. That was the night. And he's got everyone else.
We've got,
Is that an annual update or is?
yeah, the annual update. And Housing Committee requested to be on the agenda that evening as well.
Oh.
I think, Jay, you were copying that. It's an older email. But yeah, they wanted to provide an update on some of the work they've been doing.
Great.
So we'll have a longer meeting in 2 weeks.
Great. In terms of the sign policy stuff that we're gonna come back to, I was doing a little research as we're talking here around the brigade signs. And I'm not really remembering exactly where they are, but as long as they're within a certain size and they're not in the public right away and they've gotten approval from the private property owner that they're on, then they're fine. They don't need to get our
Absolutely,
permission.
or the ones in government property.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the ones that we're the owner and have to get permission for.
we haven't. Gotcha.
So, but I like Adam's approach on that of let it ride for now, but send them a letter, so next year they'll be ahead of it. So.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, unless anybody really wants to hang on here past 9, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Was Bart second?
We have a motion from David Fender, seconded by David Hill. To adjourn, please take the name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Bart, aye.
Adam, I. And Jay, aye. We are adjourned.